If you're hearing this, you're not alone. There's still hope at the edge. Rain pattered softly on the cracked rooftop of a forgotten city, long swallowed by silence. In the last remaining pocket of what was once bustling civilization, 52 survivors huddled in a partially collapsed structure known as Sector 9. To them, it wasn't just shelter. It was the last place the dead hadn't taken. Callum Reyes sat cross-legged, headphones pressed tightly over his ears, listening to the static-filled emergency band they scanned every day. For months, nothing but static. But today, the airwaves hissed differently. Then, just once, it came through. If you're hearing this, you're not alone. There's still hope at the edge. He ripped the headphones off and scrambled down the stairwell to the common floor, his boots thudding against the cold cement. Below, makeshift lanterns flickered as others gathered for their nightly meal of rationed canned beans and filtered water. It wasn't food. It was survival. "You won't believe this," Callum panted, holding the receiver out. "We got a message. From outside." The room went still. Nova, the group's unofficial leader, slowly rose from her corner. Her face, usually stoic and unreadable, showed a flicker of something foreign, hope. "What kind of message?" she asked, already moving toward him. Callum played the snippet again. The entire group leaned in, straining to catch every word. When it ended, no one spoke. "Could be a trap," muttered Jace, the brooding ex-mechanic with a habit of expecting the worst. "Or another false alarm. Like the one we chased last fall that cost us 3 people. "It could also be real," Nova said, silencing him with a look. "And if it is, it means we're not the last." The dead had overrun every known settlement. Cities fell, towns vanished, and borders faded. The dead zone wasn't a place, it was every place. Only a few fortified enclaves like Sector 9 clung to existence, hidden from both the living and the undead. That night, a vote was taken. 32 wanted to stay. Safe, hidden. But 20, led by Nova and Callum, wanted to follow the signal. See where it came from. See who else was left. The group fractured at sunrise. Supplies were split. Maps were drawn. Instructions left behind in case anyone ever came looking. Those who stayed behind watched from the rooftop as the 20 slipped through the debris-filled streets like ghosts, heading into the unknown. Among them, Nova, the ex-firefighter who never gave up on people. Callum, the former college radio DJ who never stopped listening. Tala, a sharp-eyed teenage scout who could climb any structure. Malik, a quiet man who had once been a nurse before the fall. Arden and Lila, twin sisters who'd lost everything but each other. The journey began through sewer tunnels and cracked pavement. Every shadow was a threat. Every corner, a possible end. The dead didn't move like they used to. Some ran now. Some were smart. The virus mutated, adapting just like the survivors. But it wasn't just the undead they had to worry about. 2 nights in, they stumbled upon a campfire in a shattered parking garage. Not zombies, humans. Armed. Suspicious. Dangerous. Nova stepped forward with her hands up. "We're not looking for trouble." One of the strangers, a woman with a crossbow and burned scars across her cheek, didn't lower her weapon. "Then you found it anyway." It took hours of tense negotiation, shared food, and the replay of the signal to prove they weren't spies or raiders. In the end, the woman, who introduced herself only as Vex, gave them directions. "You're heading toward the southern edge," she asked, eyebrows raised. "You're mad." "But I've heard the signal too." "Then it's real?" Callum asked. Vex looked away, then nodded. "Yeah. But I also heard the screams after. Be careful." The group moved on, shaken but determined. 5 days in, their numbers were tested. A swarm burst from an overturned school bus. Lila didn't scream, just pushed her sister away before vanishing beneath the mass of rotten bone. Arden's sobs echoed through the trees as they dragged her back, biting down her grief like poison. Nova didn't speak for the rest of the night. Only stared at the sky and whispered, "We keep moving." For her. By the 7th night, they reached a ridge overlooking the southern perimeter. From the cliffside, they saw it, a glowing outpost ringed in light and movement. Distant. Alive. But between them and it, a maze of forest, abandoned outposts, and signals they now realized were repeating, over and over. The signal wasn't just a beacon. It was a warning. And the closer they got, the more they heard something new riding under the static. Don't trust the voices. They know we're listening. Nova looked at Callum. He was pale. "Is this still about hope?" she asked. Callum didn't answer. He wasn't sure anymore. Hope was still alive. But so were they. The trees began where the last shattered highway ended, tall, twisted, and unnaturally still. The survivors stared at the dark forest below the ridge, an ocean of green concealing everything. The outpost they'd seen from above had vanished behind the treetops, swallowed by mist and silence. Nova adjusted the strap on her pack and took the first step down the slope. The others followed quietly. They didn't speak much anymore. Not after Lila. Tala was the last to move, pausing to carve a small symbol into the bark of a nearby tree, a quiet ritual she'd started after her older brother had died months ago. Every mark was a memory. A promise not to forget. The forest wasn't just silent. It was listening. Birds didn't chirp. Leaves barely rustled. The deeper they went, the heavier the air became, like the earth itself was holding its breath. "We should have brought more flares," Malik murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "We don't want light right now," Nova said, crouching beside a broken signpost. It once read "Welcome to Greenhill Park Reserve," but the letters were smeared with dried handprints, human or not, no one could say. They pushed deeper, forming a diamond formation Tala had drawn out in chalk days earlier. Nova led at the front with Arden behind her, eyes constantly darting to the trees. Malik and Vex watched the flanks. Callum held the rear, radio slung over his back, always scanning for interference. Static had become his second language. They weren't halfway through the reserve before they noticed something odd. The trees had eyes. Dozens of them. Dozens of makeshift scarecrows strung from branches, faces made of cloth, wires, and broken plastic eyes ripped from toys and mannequins. They hung like sentinels, arms raised, hollow mouths open in silent screams. "Someone made these," Arden whispered. "Someone's watching," Vex added, her grip tightening on the crossbow. The scarecrows weren't meant to frighten the dead. They were warnings for the living. That night, they didn't make camp. Instead, they took shifts, rotating in threes, keeping watch from inside a rusted ranger station barely standing near a dry riverbed. Tala found an old map and traced their path with a flashlight. "We're 3 miles from where the outpost should be," she said. "If we cut through the riverbed, we can shave off half a day." "Unless it's blocked," Nova said. "Or worse, occupied." They heard the sound an hour after midnight. It wasn't a growl or a moan. It was laughter. Low. Childlike. Echoing from somewhere nearby. Vex stood instantly. "That's not normal. That's not anything I've heard before." The laughter stopped, replaced by a faint dragging sound across the floor outside. When Nova swung open the door, nothing was there, except a single plastic doll lying at the threshold. Its face was cracked, one eye missing. Its recorded voice sputtered through broken speakers. "Let's play again." Tala threw it into the trees. They moved at dawn. The riverbed was passable, barely. It was dry, narrow, and lined with debris. Old camping gear. Torn clothing. half a shopping cart. A broken shoe still stained red. They followed it in silence. Then came the smell. Rot. Damp rot, old and fresh. Tala stopped first. Nova saw her gag and raised her hand, motioning everyone to halt. Up ahead, behind a collapsed log, they found a pile of bodies, some stripped of skin, others picked clean to the bone. Not a horde. Not random. A feeding sight. Too clean, Malik said. Too fast. Something dragged them here. Look, Tala whispered, pointing to the tree bark. It had long, vertical claw marks, high up, too high for a normal zombie. They're climbing now? Callum said, voice shaking. No, Nova said. They're waiting. That night, they reached the edge of the forest. The outpost was close. They could hear a faint humming in the distance, electricity. Generators. Proof of human hands. But then the sky lit up. A signal flare arched above the trees, red and furious. Seconds later, gunfire cracked in the air, short bursts, followed by screaming. Not the undead. Not the mindless wails of rot and ruin. Human screams. The group froze. Vex unslung her weapon. Nova drew her blade. Could be a trap, Arden said, eyes wet. We're walking into something. We don't know who's fighting who. Doesn't matter, Nova replied. We go together. Then, out of the smoke near the edge of the clearing, a figure stumbled toward them. Limping. Bleeding. Human. It was a boy, maybe 17, his shirt torn and soaked with blood. They're not what you think, he gasped. The outpost, it's not safe. They're using people. What do you mean? Callum asked, stepping forward. But the boy collapsed before he could answer. Behind him, something moved in the trees. Nova raised her blade. And the forest screamed. Not all monsters are dead. Some build walls and call it safety. Nova dropped to one knee beside the boy, pressing her fingers against his neck. A pulse. Faint, erratic, but still there. Blood soaked his shirt, and fresh gashes ran down his back, claw marks, deep and wide. He's alive, she said, her voice taut. Malik, help me stabilize him. The nurse was already unpacking gauze and antiseptic from his satchel, hands practiced and calm even as another distant scream echoed through the trees. Tala kept watch, perched on a moss-covered boulder with binoculars. The outpost's less than half a mile ahead, she said. I see the wall. It's real. Big. Reinforced. But no movement up top. No patrols. That's wrong, Vex said coldly. No outpost like that leaves its walls unmanned. Malik worked quickly, cleaning and binding the boy's wounds. His eyes flickered open, glassy and terrified. Please, don't go there, he rasped. They're not survivors. They're. A sharp sound interrupted him, like a blade sliding from a sheath. Arden had drawn her hunting knife and was now crouched beside him. Finish the sentence, she said. They're what? The boy looked toward the sky, breathing raggedly. They're feeding them, feeding the dead. The group exchanged glances. Callum's face paled. Feeding them what? Nova asked slowly. The boy gave a weak, bitter laugh. People. The silence that followed was cold and long. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Could be delirium, Malik whispered. Blood loss. Could be the truth, Vex countered. Wouldn't be the first time a group turned cannibal or brokered deals with the infected. Nova stood up and dusted off her hands. We get eyes on it before we make any decisions. Tala, you're on scout. Vex, you cover her. No contact unless confirmed safe. 10-minute recon. Tala nodded, sliding into the undergrowth with Vex close behind. The rest of the group huddled in silence near the dying firelight of their hidden camp. "I don't understand," Arden whispered. "Why would anyone protect the infected?" "Control," Nova replied, staring into the darkness. "Or fear. Maybe both." Minutes passed. Then 10. Then 12. Just as Nova was about to call them back, Vex's voice crackled over the radio. "We have eyes on the gate. Something's wrong." Tala's voice followed, sharp and strained. "There are survivors, but they're chained. Lined up. Guards walking them into holding cells. They're not a community," Vex added. "They're a prison." Nova's jaw tightened. "Return immediately." By the time Vex and Tala returned, both were flushed, angry, and breathing heavily. "They've got spotlights, towers, even working drones," Vex said. "But they're not using them for safety. They're managing something." "There's a pit," Tala said, voice low. "I saw it through the trees. There are infected inside, dozens. They're not killing them. They're keeping them." "Why?" Callum asked, stunned. Vex's expression darkened. "Power. Fear. Maybe they figured out how to control them somehow. Maybe they offer up prisoners as sacrifices to stay safe. Doesn't matter. That place is not a sanctuary. It's a slaughterhouse." The boy stirred again, barely conscious. "My sister's still in there," he mumbled. They said if I ran, she'd die." Nova looked around the group. Faces hardened. Fear mixed with fury. The weight of what they'd hoped for now turned into something far worse. "We need to get her out," the boy said. Nova didn't hesitate. "We will." "No offense," Malik said gently, "but how? We're down to 19, and they're armed, fortified, and organized." Nova turned to Callum. "That signal you picked up. Can you tap into it again?" He hesitated. "Maybe. I can isolate the frequency. If we can piggyback a message, maybe we can lure some of them out. Make them think someone's coming." "Good," Nova said. "That's our first distraction. Tala, map the fastest way inside. No main gates. We go under or over." "What if they've trapped the whole perimeter?" Arden asked. "Then we improvise." It took hours, but by dawn, they had a plan. Tala led them through a collapsed storm drain that connected beneath the wall, just wide enough for one person at a time. The boy, now able to walk with help, directed them to the holding pens. Callum spliced into the outpost's radio signal, sending out a mock message. "This is Outpost Echo 2. Emergency reinforcement convoy en route. Prepare for secure evac." Static hissed for a moment, then. "Copy that, Echo 2. Deploying gate team." Nova nodded. "That's our window." Under the cover of movement and confusion, the group emerged from the drain. The outpost was more brutal than they expected: concrete towers, rusted shipping containers stacked like cages, and makeshift arenas scarred with blood. Nova led the charge. Silent. Focused. They reached the holding cells. Inside, a dozen people sat chained, dazed and broken. Among them, a girl in a red jacket, eyes fierce even in exhaustion. The boy ran to her. "Kira." Her face lit up. "You came back." He grabbed the keyring from a sleeping guard's belt. The moment the locks clicked open, alarms erupted. "They know," Callum gasped. And then the floodgates opened. From the far end of the camp, a metallic gate rose. Out poured the infected, dozens of them, directed like hounds by the guards. The survivors had triggered the trap meant for others. Nova turned to the group, eyes blazing. "Get the civilians out. We hold the line. And the fight began. Some places don't need zombies to be dead zones. The gates thundered open with a mechanical groan that echoed like thunder through the false sanctuary. Nova barely had time to signal before the horde surged in, rotting bodies twisted and fast, eyes glowing with sick hunger. But these weren't wild strays. They moved like they had been herded. Released on command. They trained them, Vex shouted, firing a bolt into the nearest one's skull. They're using them like weapons. Hold position. Nova ordered, dragging a metal crate to form a barricade. Buy time for the prisoners. The newly freed civilians, weak, malnourished, and stunned, scrambled behind Callum and Malik as they herded them toward the broken drainage tunnel. Arden covered their flank, swinging her machete in tight, brutal arcs. Her eyes were empty, a girl already mourning her sister, now channeling it into survival. The infected crashed against the crates. Bones cracked. Fingers clawed. One made it over the top, only for Tala to drive a blade into its jaw from below. 15 seconds. Callum called. Then they're all in. Nova's group held formation with practiced desperation. Every second mattered. Behind them, the tunnel funneled the civilians out of the nightmare compound, but the entrance wouldn't stay secret much longer. Then, above them, a loudspeaker crackled to life. To the intruders, lay down your weapons and surrender. You are outnumbered and surrounded. Nova looked up toward the control tower, where a woman in a lab coat stood calmly behind a microphone. Her face was unscarred, untouched by chaos. But her eyes were cold. Calculating. You've broken protocol, she continued. The infected were contained. This breach endangers everything. You're not saviors, you're a threat to human continuity. Callum scoffed. Continuity? She's feeding people to zombies and calling it balance. She's not wrong about us being a threat, Vex said with a grim smile, notching another bolt. Let's prove her right. Nova's mind worked fast. Too many infected. Ammo running low. The only way to win was to collapse the pit and block the tunnel behind them, cut off the controlled horde and retreat before they were overwhelmed. She shouted to Tala. The garage behind us, gas tanks? Tala nodded. Saw 4 on the way in. Enough for a boom. Set charges. We seal the breach and buy escape. Tala disappeared into the compound's back lot with Arden in tow. Meanwhile, Nova and Vex pushed forward, cutting a path toward the gate where infected kept flooding in. Malik, with me. Nova yelled. Callum, hold the last group at the drain. They reached the boy and his sister, Kira, just as 2 more infected rushed them. Kira shoved her brother down, raised a broken metal rod, and stabbed through one's eye socket. The second was tackled by Malik, who stabbed upward into its soft jaw before rolling away. You fight well, Nova told Kira. I watched them for weeks. I know where they're weak, she replied. Suddenly, Tala's voice came over the radio. Charges planted. 3 minutes until boom. Pull back. Nova barked. Get everyone out of the kill zone. They began a coordinated retreat through a side corridor, leading into the containment wing. Dozens of cells were still locked, some filled with the half-turned, people who hadn't fully succumbed yet. Some begged. Some wept. One slammed against the bars, screaming, "They kept me alive just to study what it feels like." Nova hesitated. Can we open them? No time, Malik said, pained. She nodded, jaw tight. We come back. If we can. Outside, the infected poured into the hallway just behind them, fast and hungry. Vex tossed her final flashbang, momentarily blinding the front wave. Nova led the survivors through the last stretch. Callum shouted from the tunnel entrance. All clear. They're through. Nova turned just as Tala and Arden sprinted past the garage, flames beginning to lick up the wall. Gasoline. Fuses. Then, boom. The explosion tore through the rear of the compound, sending smoke, dust, and bodies flying. Screams, both living and undead, faded beneath the roar of fire and collapsing steel. The group burst out the tunnel exit, tumbling onto the forest floor. Smoke billowed into the trees behind them. The false sanctuary burned, its secrets buried, for now. But Nova wasn't done. "We can't stop," she said, coughing. "They'll regroup. Hunt us. That woman won't let us go. She thinks she's saving the world. What do we do?" Tala asked, sweat and ash streaking her face. "We find others," Nova replied. "If she's broadcasting, others may be listening. We expose what they're doing. We end this." Kira stepped beside her, shoulders squared. "I know how to get in. I know the rest of their network. I was inside long enough." Callum stared at her. "You're saying there are more outposts like that one?" Kira nodded grimly. "At least 4. Maybe more. They call themselves the Eden Protocol." Vex exhaled slowly. "Sounds like it's time we tear Eden down." Nova looked around at the scorched woods, the battered faces of the survivors, and the cold sky overhead. She knew the road ahead wouldn't just be about survival anymore. It would be war. The deeper you go into Eden, the harder it is to hear the truth. The group didn't rest after the explosion. Smoke still drifted behind them, rising from the false sanctuary they had just destroyed, but they were already on the move. The forest beyond was thicker now, darker. Every tree creaked with secrets. Every branch felt like it might reach out and drag them back. Nova led the survivors in silence. 19 of them remained now. Most were shaken. Some cried. But none turned back. Kira walked at the front beside her. Though still pale from her wounds, her mind was sharp. She moved with purpose, whispering directions and warning of patrol paths she had memorized during her time inside the compound. She had been a prisoner, yes, but she had also listened. "They call it Eden because they think they're saving humanity," she said. "But they're not. They're picking who lives, and feeding the rest to the dead." "You said there were more outposts," Callum said, his radio slung over his back as always. "How many exactly?" 4 major ones. Scattered across the dead zone's last inhabited corners. And they're all connected by something called the Eden signal. Tala perked up. "That sounds like what Callum picked up." "It is," Kira confirmed. "It's more than a distress call. It's layered, coded messages, surveillance chatter, orders. They transmit using old satellite towers. Anyone who hears it thinks it's a rescue beacon. Until they show up and get chained," Arden muttered. "Or worse," Vex added. That night, they camped in a small ravine. Fires were forbidden. Only glow sticks and hushed conversations kept the dark away. Nova spread out the salvaged maps and marked their current position. "If Kira's right," she said, "there's another Eden facility northeast, through what's left of Denton City." Everyone groaned. Denton had been one of the first cities to fall. Reports said it burned for 2 weeks. Others said the infected still roamed the high-rises, nesting like insects in the steel skeletons. Malik shook his head. "It's a death trap. There's no clean path through it." "We won't go through," Nova replied. "We go under." Tala blinked. "Tunnels?" "Subway lines," Kira said. "I used them before I was captured. Some parts are still walkable." That night, while most slept, Callum sat with his radio, adjusting frequencies by the faint green light of a glow stick. Static. More static. Then, voices. "Alpha node confirmed. Proceed to culling Sector 17 by sunrise. Bring Group 3 forward. All must be processed before the next signal window. He froze. Then a new voice came on, clearer, colder. It was her. The woman from the tower. Initiate Stage 4 cleansing. Anyone outside protocol will be marked rogue and terminated. Then silence. Callum slowly turned to Nova and replayed the transmission. Her eyes narrowed. They're not just containing outbreaks. They're purging survivors. Anyone who doesn't comply. They're trying to rewrite the world, Vex said. Start over. Controlled. Selective. And the rest of us? Arden asked bitterly. Collateral. The next day, they moved east. The closer they got to Denton, the more unnatural everything became. No birds. No deer. Even the dead were absent. Just silence and the smell of ash. They found the subway station buried beneath a pharmacy. Tala cleared debris until a metal grate appeared. They pried it open and climbed down. The tunnels were worse than they expected. Narrow, echoing, filled with graffiti and bones. Callum scanned frequencies again, and picked up low bursts, Eden patrols. One phrase repeated again and again. Voices of Eden are watching. What does that mean? He asked Kira. She hesitated. They have operatives. People loyal to Eden. Some of them infiltrate survivor camps. Others, spy and report. They call them voices. Sleepers, Vex muttered. Just like in the old wars. Nova frowned. So anyone we meet from here on could be working for Eden? Kira nodded. They pushed deeper into the tunnels. Hours passed. At one point, they found a room once used for subway maintenance. Now it was a twisted shrine, walls covered in scratched messages. The Eden signal is a lie. They said we were the cure. But they meant food. Don't follow the voice. Nova lit a red flare. Its glow revealed something scrawled in dried blood across the wall. There is no Eden. Only the end. Then Tala spotted the cameras, 4 of them, blinking red above the far archway. We're not alone, she said. Behind them, a speaker crackled to life. You should have stayed in the ruins. Now we know where you are. Callum spun around. They've been watching us the whole time. Nova drew her blade. Move. Now. As they fled through the tunnel, a soft noise began to rise behind them. A low chant. Mechanical. Repeating. Voices of Eden are watching. Voices of Eden are watching. The group broke into a sprint. They weren't walking into Denton anymore. They were walking into a trap. They weren't walking through tunnels. They were walking through a net. The tunnels shifted from silence to chaos in seconds. The chant, Voices of Eden are watching, echoed through the subway walls like a hymn from some ancient machine god, bouncing off rusted steel and damp stone. It was mechanical, inhuman, repeating without rhythm or emotion. Voices of Eden are watching. And then the lights cut out. Eyes up. Nova barked. Stay tight. Weapons ready. The group formed a tight wedge, Kira and Tala in the center, Nova and Vex on point. Callum pulled his handheld scanner from his pack and swept the hallway. Red blips blinked to life all around them, motion signatures. Dozens. Moving fast. They're closing in, he said. Both sides. Then we break through, Nova said. Straight ahead. We don't stop. They ran. The floor was slick with ancient water and something fouler, old decay, maybe recent. Somewhere far ahead, emergency lights flickered. A maintenance platform loomed like salvation. And then they came. Not zombies. Humans. Clad in black body armor marked with a faded Eden symbol, a serpent curled around a dying tree. "Down!" Vex shouted. The first volley hit the ceiling, warning shots. But the second wasn't. Bullets tore through the tunnel. Concrete chipped. Sparks flew. Arden screamed as she dove behind a pillar. One of the civilians caught a shot in the leg and went down hard. "They're not trying to capture," Callum gasped. "They're eliminating." "Cover fire!" Nova shouted. "Get him up!" Malik darted forward, dragging the wounded man behind a utility cabinet. Blood soaked his pant leg, but the wound was clean. Survivable. If they made it out. "Over there." Tala pointed. A door partially buried under a mound of debris. Emergency access. Could lead out. Nova didn't hesitate. Everyone through it. Vex, Arden, hold them for 30 seconds, then follow. Tala and Callum shoved debris aside. The door creaked open and revealed a spiral stairwell, rusted and foul-smelling, but intact. They shoved the civilians inside one by one, Kira helping the limping man down. Nova was next, followed by Malik and the last two fighters. Vex and Arden came last, sliding down the rail just as bullets sparked against the steel doorframe. Then the door slammed shut behind them. "Seal it," Vex said, grabbing a pipe from the ground and jamming it across the handle. "That won't hold them long, but it'll buy us minutes." They descended into darkness. At the bottom, the tunnel split, one path leading north, the other curving sharply east. "This way," Kira said, choosing east. "It'll bring us to the surface." "Are you sure?" Callum asked. She looked back at him. "No." Still, they followed. The air grew colder, heavier. The tunnel sloped upward, and eventually, faint light bled through a grate above. Tala climbed first, lifting it carefully. She peeked out, then froze. "What is it?" Nova whispered. Tala lowered herself slowly. "We're under a processing hub." "You mean like?" "Yeah. An Eden checkpoint. Armed guards. Trucks. Drones. And cages." Callum swore under his breath. "They built a city of control on top of a city of ruin." "Looks like they're preparing for something," Tala said. "Movement. Big movement." Nova crouched and motioned for the group to listen. "We're not just survivors anymore. We're witnesses. If they're moving, they're expanding. And if they expand, more people die." Kira took a deep breath. "There's a satellite uplink here. I saw it once during transport. If we can hijack it, we can broadcast." "You mean tell the truth?" Arden asked. Kira nodded. "To every receiver still online. Eden's signal masks other frequencies, but we could override it. Just for a few minutes. Long enough. Then let's do it," Nova said. "Tala, Vex, scout the surface. Find the uplink. We'll move in 2 waves." Vex cracked a rare grin. "Now we're talking." They climbed from the grate one by one, slipping through the underbelly of Denton's restructured skeleton. Above, the sound of drones buzzed low. Guards moved with precision, unaware that ghosts of the old world crept beneath their boots. Tala found the tower, a short, heavily armored unit atop a repurposed parking garage. 2 guards manned the entrance. Vex took them out silently, bolts to the throat. No alarms. Inside, the room glowed with green monitors. A technician sat at the console, too absorbed in signal data to notice Nova's approach. "Hands up," she said. He did. Trembling. Callum stepped forward, slamming his bag on the desk and pulling out his rigged transmitter. "I can patch in. Give me 30 seconds. "Do it," Nova said. The technician spoke fast. You don't know what you're doing. Eden is order. Without it, the dead win. No, Kira said. With Eden, we all lose. Callum connected the transmitter and flipped the switch. Static. Then. This is a message to all survivors, the Eden Protocol is a lie. They are not rescuing you. They are containing you. Feeding you to the infected. You are not alone. Resist. Fight. Survive. Nova watched the signal bar climb. But just as it peaked, the tower shook. Outside, gunfire. A patrol had found them. We've got company. Vex shouted. Too many. Nova turned to Callum. Cut the transmission. Wipe the trace. He did, just as the door blew inward. The squad opened fire. And the survivors dived for cover, knowing not all of them would make it out. The message got out. But at what cost? The door blew apart with a flash of smoke and metal, shards of steel screaming through the air. Callum hit the floor, shielding the transmitter with his body. Nova dove behind the control desk as a barrage of bullets ripped across the room. Sparks rained down. Monitors shattered. Positions. Nova shouted, raising her sidearm. Vex and Arden were already at the flanks, returning fire with controlled precision. The room turned into a storm of noise, bullets, boots, and voices shouting over radios. But in the center of it all, Callum clutched the power cord of his transmitter, holding it in place like it was the last thing keeping the world together. The Eden soldiers poured in, moving fast and coordinated. Trained. Not scavengers or random patrols. These were operators, protecting something important. We hold this line. Nova yelled. We don't let them take this tower back. The technician, still on the ground and now bleeding from a graze to the shoulder, tried crawling away. Malik stepped in and restrained him with a torn strap of cable. Outside, Tala used the tower's height to rain covering fire from a half-broken stairwell. Her rifle cracked out sharp bursts, dropping 2 soldiers trying to flank the entrance. We can't hold long. Vex called, blood seeping from a fresh graze on her temple. They're circling. Nova turned to Callum. Is the signal still out? He looked up, face pale and tense. It was. For about 60 seconds. That's all we got. Then we did it. Yeah, he said, but now they know exactly who we are. From outside the building, they heard the sound of tires screeching, reinforcements. We need an exit, Nova barked. Tala. There's a ladder down the back. Tala called. It leads to the old tram station, abandoned before the fall. Could be a way out. Move the civilians. Nova ordered. Arden, Vex, cover retreat. The survivors broke for the rear access. Kira helped the technician walk, not out of mercy, but necessity. He knows their codes, she said. Could be useful. One by one, they slipped through the back window and onto the ladder, descending into the smoke-drenched remains of Denton. Below, the city looked like a cracked skeleton, roads split by tree roots, glassless towers looming like tombstones. Nova was the last out. She paused before leaving the control room and looked back. The monitors still blinked erratically, their screens filled with lines of Eden's protocols, names, coordinates, commands. Next time, she whispered, we tear you apart completely. She slammed the door behind her. The survivors regrouped at the edge of the abandoned tram station. Its rails were rusted. Signs faded. But it had depth, winding tunnels that could lead them out of Denton before Eden locked down the perimeter. Inside, it was dark and cool. Quiet. The silence after battle always felt the loudest. Callum sat against a pillar, pulling off his headset and rubbing his face. 60 seconds. That's all it was. It's enough, Kira said gently. If even one survivor heard it, it's enough to plant doubt. They'll track the signal, Vex warned. They'll purge this whole sector. Let them come, Nova replied. We'll be gone by then. Arden sat apart from the others, blade in hand, carving a line into the stone wall beside her. She hadn't spoken since the tower. Tala sat next to her. You okay? Tala asked. Arden nodded, barely. Just tired of running. We're not just running anymore, Tala said. We're fighting. Later that night, while most slept, Nova and Kira climbed to the surface through a broken escalator shaft. The city skyline lay beyond them, cracked and hollow. And yet, in the distance, they saw something neither expected, a flare. Red. Slow burning. A survivor signal. Someone heard us, Kira whispered. Nova exhaled. Then we go to them. But even as she said it, she felt the weight of what was coming. Eden would respond. Not just with soldiers or bullets. With fear. Lies. Control. Callum approached quietly from behind. I boosted the signal one more time, low power, short range. Gave coordinates. If others are nearby, they'll come. Or Eden will, Kira said grimly. Nova nodded. We prepare for both. As they returned underground, Nova addressed the group. The war isn't coming. It's already started. And Denton was just the first blow. Where do we go next? Malik asked. Where the signal reaches next, Callum answered. We started something. Now we finish it. And somewhere, deep in the Eden network, red alerts lit across monitors. Cameras flashed images of Nova, Callum, Kira, Tala, and Vex. A voice on a secured Eden channel whispered coldly. We found them. Begin Protocol Purge. Part 8 title, Echoes from the Edge. Let me know when you're ready for the final part. The signal was sent. The fire had started. Now the world had to choose, freedom or Eden. The survivors didn't sleep much after Denton. The underground tram station became their base for 2 nights. They barricaded the tunnels with steel and debris, set motion alarms, and took shifts standing guard. Nova never let her rifle stray far from her side. She paced the perimeter like a wolf, sharp, silent, watching. Kira sat with Callum beside a dim lantern, both of them sorting through scavenged signal gear and torn maps. Her hands moved with purpose, but her eyes were heavy with something darker. They won't stop hunting us, she said quietly. They can't stop what we started, Callum replied, adjusting a frequency dial. The message is out. Even if they destroy this place, others know now. Eden's mask is cracking. Kira looked up. And what if people don't believe it? Someone will, he said. Someone always does. From the corner, Vex chuckled dryly. Hope's a dangerous thing to carry out here. It's also the only thing they haven't infected yet, Nova said, stepping into the flickering light. By dawn, they were ready to move again. The red flare they'd seen above Denton had come from a group of survivors holed up in a long-abandoned train yard just west of the city. The message had reached them, brief, distorted, but clear enough to act. Now Nova's team was heading there, bringing news and proof. Proof of Eden's lies. Proof of the death camps. The prisons. The pits. But Eden wasn't done either. As the group moved through the outskirts of Denton, signs of an incoming purge were everywhere: burned-out settlements, survivors hanged along highway overpasses, Eden banners posted with cold, bureaucratic warnings. Shelter unauthorized. Cleansed for reclamation. Eden Protocol, safety through order. Each message was accompanied by images of smiling, clean-suited officers, a cruel mask over blood-soaked policy. God, Malik muttered, kneeling beside a fallen survivor, wrists still bound. "They're not even hiding it anymore." "No," Nova said. "Because they're scared." A new sound rolled through the city ruins, distant engines. Armored vehicles. Eden was closing the noose. By mid-afternoon, the team reached the train yard. Rows of rusted locomotives lay still beneath collapsing metal roofs. Fires burned in oil drums. Survivors, 23 in all, emerged cautiously, rifles half-raised until Kira stepped forward. "They're friends," she said. "They're the reason you're still alive." A man in his 50s, eyes sharp but sunken, stepped out. "Name's Grayson. We've been moving for weeks. Your signal gave us hope. We thought we were the only ones left." "You're not," Nova said. "And you're not alone anymore." The survivors gathered, listening as Callum replayed the Eden transmissions he'd recorded. The horror was immediate. Faces fell. Hands clenched. "We can't stay here," Grayson said. "They'll come." "They already are," Tala replied. "We saw a convoy yesterday. 10 miles east." "We need to move now," Nova said, already scanning the train yard layout. "We'll take everyone north. Eden doesn't know that region as well. There are places still off-grid." "There's another option," Callum said, slowly raising a battered map. "There's a satellite station in the mountains. Pre-collapse tech. If we can reach it and boost the signal again, we could hit the whole continent. Every radio. Every speaker. Even old military bands." "You're saying finish what Denton started," Vex said. Callum nodded. "We make the truth louder than their lies." Grayson looked at the map, then at Nova. "You think we can make it?" Nova's voice was calm, but fierce. "We don't have a choice." That night, before they moved, Nova climbed one of the locomotives and looked out over the train yard. Fires flickered. Children slept beside mothers who hadn't rested in weeks. Strangers sat in circles, sharing food, old songs, even a laugh or two. The world hadn't ended. It had changed. And it could still change again. Vex climbed up beside her. "They'll come for us." "They always do," Nova said. "But next time, we'll be waiting." She pulled a flare from her vest, red, like the one that had called them here, and lit it. The smoke curled upward into the starlit sky, a beacon. Not of danger. But defiance. Moments later, others across the yard lit flares of their own. Red. Blue. Green. A symphony of color in the ruins of the old world. Elsewhere in the dead zones, survivors looked up and saw the sky burn with light. Messages spread. Whispers became voices. Voices became resistance. And somewhere, in a dark room deep inside Eden headquarters, a man watched the growing map of flare signals spreading like wildfire across the grid. "We've lost control," he said. The woman beside him, the one from the tower, simply stared. "No," she replied. "We've lost silence." And far away, on a broken road at the edge of the known world, Nova and her people walked into the dark, carrying with them the truth, the signal. And the fire of freedom. The end.